Well, sticking with our top story, Britain will have a new Prime Minister, possibly by the end of today. Well, joining us now is someone who hopes that the next incumbent in number 10 will be Rishi Sunak. Thank you for joining us on the programme, Mark Harper, Conservative MP for the Forest of Dean. I mean, Rishi Sunak, if he does become Prime Minister, has a mammoth task on his hand. The Tories are behind in the polls, and many of those voters who experimented with the Conservatives voted for them in 2019, particularly those Red Wall voters. The Tories are very much behind. I mean, what can we expect from a Prime Minister like Rishi Sunak? Will he implement the 2019 manifesto or change tack? What do you think?
Well, look, first of all, I think it's important to say that Rishi Sunak's not taking anything for granted. He's still talking this morning to colleagues from across the parliamentary party, arguing for why they should support him to be Prime Minister. So we're not taking anything for granted. But he's been clear that he would, if he were to become Prime Minister, his job is to stabilise the economy, get us back on track economically. But he's been clear that he would implement the manifesto on which we were elected in 2019. We have a parliamentary democracy, that's the basis on which we were elected, and that's the basis on which we would govern.
Looking at the numbers, and I know that you do look at the numbers as a former chief whip of the Conservative Party, it looks pretty overwhelming that this is a pretty much done deal. Is it the case that Rishi Sunak will, in your view, try to bring in people from across the party to try and maintain a greater sense of unity than we saw under Liz Truss, or frankly, than we saw under Boris Johnson too? Must the number one task of a potential Rishi Sunak administration be to unite such a fractured party?
Well, look, Tom, the first task of Rishi Sunak, if he becomes Prime Minister, is to think about the country ahead of the party and govern in the national interest. But in order to do that, you're right, he needs to make sure he can command the support across the Conservative Party. I've been very heartened to see the breadth of his support from colleagues right across the party, and there were some important endorsements at the weekend from Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch and Steve Baker, for example, and others we've seen today. But yes, he's made it clear that if he were to be Prime Minister, he will appoint a broad-based cabinet that draws on all of the traditions of the Conservative Party, which I think is what Prime Ministers are wise to do, so that we can all work together to focus on the issues the public want us to deal with.
Mark Harper, you say that Rishi Sunak is focusing on, or would like to focus on, country before party, but many people would argue that he was, and many of his supporters were instrumental in kind of bringing down Liz Truss when she was only became the Prime Minister a matter of weeks ago. So in that sense, many people would be quite sceptical of this idea of the Tories putting country before party.
Well, I don't agree with that characterisation. I think we can see what... look, I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about the past, but look, the Prime Minister herself acknowledged that the mini-budget didn't land well. She acknowledged that mistakes had been made, and she acknowledged that she wasn't able to deliver the programme on which she'd been elected by Conservative Party members. And I think we saw it was the reaction of the financial markets to those unfunded tax cuts, and to what she herself acknowledged was going too far, too fast, that I think was the root of the problem. You know, for myself, as you will know, so I've been on this programme a lot over the summer, I campaigned very strongly for Rishi Sunak during the summer, but in all of my appearances after Liz became Prime Minister, I was very clear. I supported her, I wanted her to succeed, and I said that clearly at the party conference. I didn't want for us to get here, but we are where we are, and I think it's important now that we get a new Prime Minister elected who can bring the party together so that we can do what is most important, which is to make decisions for the country, and that's what I hope Rishi Sunak will be able to do if he is successful in becoming Prime Minister sometime this week.